Then I looked and I saw a hand stretched out to me. It was a scroll in which he unrolled before me. On both sides of it were written words of lamentation and mourning and woe. Now listen to Revelation John. Revelation 5, verse 1. Then I saw on the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writings on both sides. That's exactly what Ezekiel saw, with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll? The Lion of the tribe of Judah is able. So both are given a scroll, both have writings on both sides. Now look at the next part. And it says, Ezekiel 2 verse 8, God says to Ezekiel, open your mouth wide and eat what I am giving you. Then I looked and the hand extended to me with a scroll. So God tells Ezekiel, eat what I'm giving to you, and he gives him a scroll. Ezekiel 3:1, and he said to me, son of man, eat what is before you, eat this scroll. Then go and speak to the people of Israel. So I opened my mouth and he gave me the scroll to eat. He said, son of man, eat the scroll and fill yourself with it. He's giving him the word. Okay, now look at Revelation. Revelation 10, 9 to 11. So I went to the angel and asked him to give me the little scroll. He said to me, take it and eat it. It will turn your stomach sour, but in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. Ezekiel, so I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth. Revelation, I took the little scroll from the angel's hand, I ate it, I tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I ate it, my stomach turned sour. I was told you must prophesy against many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. Look at that parallel. Ezekiel is a foreshadow, is a decoder of Revelation. Next, in that first vision that Ezekiel saw, he sees something. He doesn't just hear the word, he sees it. By the way, both of them, Ezekiel, it says when he's seeing all this, he faints. He goes down, he passes, he goes down. So does John. They both do. Ezekiel 1:26 says this, over the vault over their heads of these creatures we'll get to was what looked like a throne of lapis lazuli gems. High above on the throne was a figure like that of a man. Okay, Revelation 4, verse 2. I was in the spirit, and there before me was a throne in heaven with somebody sitting on it. And the one who sat on it had the appearance of jasper and rubies. A rainbow shone around, and emerald circled the throne. Ezekiel, I looked and behold the expanse that was over the head of the cherubim, something like a sapphire stone, in appearance resembling a throne above them. Ezekiel 1, over the heads of the living beings was something like an expanse of crystal spread out over their heads. Also, this is Revelation now, in front of the throne looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. Amazing how consistent the Bible is. The throne of God has the appearance of jewels. It's jewels and a sea of glass. Then comes the glimpse. Next thing with Ezekiel comes the glimpse of the Holy One himself. It says this, he was high up, was a figure with the appearance of a man. I noticed from the appearance of his waist and upward, something like gleaming metal, looked like fire all around and within, and from the appearance of his waist down, it looked like fire. And there was radiance around him like the appearance of the rainbow and the clouds on a rainy day. So was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. All right, that's Ezekiel beginning. Now look at the beginning of Revelation. Revelation 1:13. In the middle of the lampstands, I saw one like a son of man, clothed in a robe, reaching to his feet, and wrapped around his chest with a golden sash. His head and his hair were white like wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, as if it had been heated to a glow in the furnace. Both of them see the Lord radiant like burning metal. It is glowing, glowing, glowing. That's where it says, Ezekiel says 1:28, when I saw it, I fell on my face. And I heard a voice speaking. Revelation 1:17, John, when I saw him, I fell at his feet like a dead man. Now this is not only glorious, it's also scary. Here's the next part. Ezekiel 1. In the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human. Okay, Revelation 5:6, John, this is what John sees. And I saw in between the throne 4 living creatures. At the beginning of Ezekiel, the 4 living creatures, and now at the beginning of Revelation, 4 living creatures. One difference in Revelation, as the verse goes on, is, and the elders around the creatures, the lamb was standing as if having been slain. And it's talking about the lamb. Well, Ezekiel doesn't have the lamb. The lamb had not been revealed as the lamb, so that's the one difference here. What do these 4 creatures look like? Ezekiel 1:5. This is what Ezekiel saw. Within it there were figures resembling 4 living beings, and this was their appearance. Human form, each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. As for the form of their faces, each had a human face, man. All 4 had the face of a lion on the right, the face of a ox on the left, and all four had the face of an eagle. Now listen to Revelation 4:6. Also in front of the throne there was what looked like a sea of glass. We just read that, crystal. In the center around the throne were four living creatures. They were covered with eyes in front and back. That's kind of scary. So these are not like your hallmark cherubim. These are a whole different kind of cherubim. The first living creature was like a lion. The second, like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Each of the four living creatures had 6 wings. All of them. Now Ezekiel sees 4 creatures with 4 faces: a lion, an ox, a man, an eagle. In Revelation, the 4 creatures each embody a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle. So they are similar with some differences. One is, in Ezekiel, each one has all those faces. In Revelation, each embodies one of them. In Ezekiel, the creature has 4 wings. In Revelation, it has 6 wings, which also matches up with Isaiah. Remember when Isaiah said, I saw the Lord on the throne? And it says, then I saw the seraphim, and they cried out, holy, holy, holy. They all had 6 wings. So there are seraphim, there are cherubim. In Revelation, they cry out also, holy, 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 or kadosh, kadosh, kadosh in Hebrew. In Isaiah, they cry out, holy, 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 kadosh. It is so consistent. In Revelation, the order of the creatures are this: a lion, ox, man, and eagle. Interesting, because the Gospels are also 4 Gospels, and they are 4 sides of Messiah. In Ezekiel, there's 4 faces. In Revelation, they all appear as one. But notice the order. The lion is first. The lion is a sign of the king, royal, regal. Matthew is the first Gospel. It shows Jesus as Messiah, as the king, lion. The ox is a beast of burden, a worker, a servant. The next gospel is Mark. Mark shows Jesus as the servant of God, man of action who does the works of God, the ox. The third is a man. The third gospel is Luke, who shows Jesus as the perfect man, humanity. And the fourth is the eagle. An eagle speaks of the heavenlies and the divine. And the fourth gospel is John, that shows Jesus as divine, heavenly, and God. Isn't that cool? Notice also how consistent the Word of God is. At the very beginning in Genesis, what was it that guarded the presence of the Holy One, or the holy place? It was the cherubim stationed at the east of Eden to stop sin from coming in with a flaming sword. What was it that appeared in the front of the Holy of Holies? If you were approaching the Holy of Holies, what would be right in front of you? The veil. What's on the veil? The cherubim are on the veil. What's on the Ark of the Covenant? The cherubim are on the Ark of the Covenant. It's not a recreation on earth. He's taken in a vision. He sees the actual presence of God, and who's there? The cherubim are there. What do they see, Ezekiel? In the midst of the living beings were something that looked like burning coals of fire, like torches moving among the beings. Fire was bright, and lightning was flashing from the fire. And the living beings ran back and forth like bolts of lightning. Now listen to Revelation, John. From the throne came flashes of lightning, rumbling and peals of thunder. In front of the throne, 7 lamps, fire blazing. Ezekiel, lightning in God's presence, flashes, bolts of lightning. Revelation, flashes of lightning, thunder, fire. That's why they fainted, because it's an awesome thing to see the throne of God. Now Ezekiel speaks first in the book of coming judgment. At the end of the prophecies of judgment, God says this to Ezekiel, and you know it. He says this in Ezekiel 33. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the sons of your people and say to them, if I bring a sword upon the land, and the people of the land take one man from among them and make him their watchman, and he sees the sword coming upon the land and blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whoever hears the sound of the trumpet but doesn't take warning, a sword comes and takes him away. His blood is on his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet. Then he goes on to tell him, but if the watchman doesn't blow the trumpet and doesn't warn the people, and the sword comes and takes them away, the blood will be on the watchman. And then he says, Son of man, you are the watchman. And if I give you this word, you must give it to your people to save them. So it's interesting, I remember when I first went on television speaking about, when the Harbinger came out, speaking about that message, which is a warning. And I'm thinking after what I did, I came back on the plane, I said, Lord, it's a heavy message. And I open up the Bible, I just open up, and it opens up to, Son of man, I made you a watchman. If you do not blow the trumpet, I will hold you accountable. We are all called to be his watchmen. You are his watchman. You know of a judgment coming, and if you don't spread the gospel, then we are accountable for their blood. So what is the trumpet of Ezekiel? It's the word of God. It's the book of Ezekiel is the trumpet of Ezekiel. It is the trumpet. Now let's go to Revelation for a moment. That's Ezekiel. The whole book is the trumpet of Ezekiel. Revelation 8:2 says this. When the Lamb broke the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and seven trumpets were given to them. The first angel sounded the trumpet, and then the second angel, the third, and the trumpets. Trumpets are a major part of the book of Revelation. And note, trumpets are linked to judgment in Revelation. So what does Ezekiel reveal about Revelation? Well, Revelation is filled with trumpets, and trumpets are the sign of the watchman warning of coming judgment. Revelation is a trumpet as a watchman warning of what is coming and saying, prepare, get right with God, a call to be saved. And so knowing the end of the matter, we must speak and spread the gospel to as many people as possible to save. The book of Revelation is the trumpet of the watchman. That's from Ezekiel. That's what it is. Now, God asked Ezekiel to do some strange things. How do you all know that? Some very strange things. But those strange things were prophetic acts that had meaning. With prophetic, it was like a prophecy in action. Listen to this in Ezekiel 5:2. When the days of your siege come to an end, burn a third of the hair inside the city. Take another third of your head and strike it with a sword all around the city. And scatter a third of the hair to the wind. Okay, a third to the city, a third with a sword, a third scatter. Why? He says it. Verse 12, a third of your people will perish by plague and famine inside. A third will fall by the sword outside your walls. And a third I will scatter to the winds with a drawn sword. A third, a third, a third. Now listen to Revelation 8. The first angel sounded the trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, hurled down to the earth. A third of the earth was burned. A third of the trees were burned. Verse 8, the second angel sounded his trumpet, something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, thrown into a sea. A third of the sea turned to blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died. A third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel sounded his trumpet. A great star blazing like a torch fell from the sky. A third of the rivers of the springs of water were turned bitter. The name is wormwood. And the fourth angel sounded. A third of the sun was struck. A third of the moon was struck. A third of the stars were struck. A third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light. A third of the night. Comes from Ezekiel. A third, a third, a third. And now this runs through Revelation. It's all following the prototype of Ezekiel. And it's interesting because what it's also revealing, Ezekiel's talking about the judgments that came on Israel in 586. But the thing is, what it's saying is those judgments were a foreshadow of the Revelation judgments that will come on the whole world. But it's linked to the judgment of Israel. Now, the temple was the place where sins were judged and wiped away. One of the symbols of judgment is fire. The fire of God consumed the sacrifice, the burnt offering. It went up to God. The ministers in the temple on earth were the priests, but the ministers in God's temple in heaven are angels or angelic priests. This comes from an amazing scene from the temple in heaven, Ezekiel 10, verse 6. Came about when he commanded the man clothed in linen, saying, take fire from between coals from the whirling wheels from between the cherubim, and he stood. The cherub reached out with his hand between the cherubim to the fire or the coals that was between the cherubim, took some coals, put them in the hands of one of the clothed in linen, took them and went out. The priest would take coals of fire from the burnt offering, the altar, and bring them in, and they would burn the incense in the temple with that. Now the angel takes coals from the fire of God, goes out from the temple. The coals from the sacrifice become coals of judgment. So speaking of judgment, now look at the book of Revelation, Revelation 8, verse 3. Listen. Another angel came and stood at the altar of God, holding a golden censer with it, and much incense was given to him. And then he took the fire, the coals, he might add it to the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar which is before the throne. And the smoke of the incense ascended from the angel's hand with the prayers of the saints. So now the scene is the temple, the incense is like the prayers, but the fire is from judgment. Then the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar, hurled it to the earth. There were peals of thunder and sounds and flashes of lightning and an earthquake. So all these things you see in Ezekiel, from the temple to judgment, now you have it in this cosmic scale in the book of Revelation. It speaks in Ezekiel that judgments came upon Jerusalem. It says, for what the Lord God says, how much more when I send my 4 judgments against Jerusalem. 4 judgments. Revelation 6, listen, verse 1. When I saw the Lamb opened up one of the seals, I heard the sound of thunder. One of the 4 beasts said, come and see. And I saw a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given, and he went forth conquering. Okay. Then the white horse, then comes the red horse, then comes the black horse, then comes the pale green horse. How many judgments? 4. The 4 judgments, God says in Ezekiel, now they take colors on them. The 4, and it's interesting. There's 4 calamities. The judgments will come on the world, but the first time they're spoken of, they have to do with Israel, but now it's magnified. And so in this case, in the case of Israel, he said, the first one is sword, famine, fierce animals, and plague. Those are the 4. Now there's a link, because the sword goes with the red horse, the sword of war. That is the red horse. Then the famine goes with the black horse, because that says that's famine. Now the pale horse is death, pale green, might be linked to pestilence. It's a sickly color. We had pestilence. And the other one, it's interesting, is this is for Israel's judgment, were deadly creatures. That's also in Revelation. But could it give us a clue of the one who's on the white horse? Some people think the white horse and the white rider, that's Messiah. It's not Messiah, because Messiah comes at the end as the king. He's not one of the judgment. Could it be the Antichrist? It could. You're coming in the guise of Messiah. Well, it's interesting, because the one judgment that will be left is animals. The Antichrist in Revelation is called the beast. The beast. Okay, but we're going to move more on that. Speaking of which, Ezekiel 8 says this, verse 3. And he extended the form of a hand and took me by the hair of my head. Ezekiel went through a lot. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the north gate, the inner courtyard, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. Ezekiel is brought to the temple in a vision, but the temple is real, and he looks and he sees, it says the image. The word in Hebrew is semel, which also means the idol, which God calls an abomination. Later on he says, you see this abomination, I'll show you more. This is a shadow of what the Bible says in Revelation. It says there is an abomination. Well, it says before that, abomination, desolation. That when you see this seated in the holy place, the temple. It's interesting, in Hebrew, the word for abomination is connected to idol, and most likely the abomination will be an idol that is set up on the Temple Mount. This is the first time it's talking about an abomination on the temple. Before Daniel is right here in Ezekiel. Revelation speaks of the false prophet. Revelation 13 says this. Verse 14, he deceives those who live on the earth because of the signs that he will have to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who live on the earth to make an image of the beast who had the wound of the sword and came back to life. It was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause all those who do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. This is why the Temple Mount is the most contested plot of land on planet Earth, even right now. Here in Ezekiel, it's saying there's an image, an idol, an image on the Temple Mount. Revelation, the false prophet makes an image, that's an abomination, of the Antichrist. I shared a few weeks ago that the conflict in the Middle East, everything that happened behind October 7th was the Temple Mount. Behind 9/11 was the Temple Mount. Because ultimately the war is between God and the enemy. That mountain is where everything's going to happen. That's where the kingdom's coming. That's where Messiah is coming. But that's where the Antichrist is also coming. And so in the last days, the Antichrist will desecrate that mountain. The abomination. Now the abomination that Ezekiel sees brings judgment to Israel. The abomination in Revelation most likely is going to bring judgment to the world. It's either the mark of God or the mark of the beast. So in the end times, we may have to choose between being under the judgment of man and government and authorities, or being under the judgment of God. It's a no-brainer. The only thing that matters is not being under the judgment of God. And if that means I'm under the judgment of man or any government, so let it be. That's nothing compared to God. We don't fear man, we fear God. And we love God, but we fear his power. If you are under the grace and favor and blessing of God, this is what it's about. Many people already in this age have had to choose, in one sense or another, to go by the judgment of God or the judgment of man. Many of this age have already chosen. There are those believers who defied people like Adolf Hitler at the cost of their life to hide Jews They were under the wrath of the Nazis, but they were under the blessing of God. There are those who went to jail for their faith under the wrath of man, but under the blessing of God. The mark of beast or the mark of God. And now here's another awesome thing. The being, this angelic scribe that put the mark on the heads of the people, so to spare them, to save them from judgment, he had a scribe's kit or he had a pen. And he was told, listen, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and make a mark on the forehead of the people. But listen, because you'll never see this in English. Listen to it in Hebrew, and I'll tell you why it means something. It says this, the command is this, Avor, go through, Betoch, the midst of Ha'ir, the city, Betoch Yerushalayim, in the midst of Jerusalem, Vehit Vita, and make Tav al Mitzchot, make a mark on their foreheads. The word for mark that I said is the word Tav. Tav is actually a letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And here, notice, it said of the angel, take a pen. So he's, what do you do with a pen? He didn't say take a brush. He said take a pen, you write letters. So here it actually says, write a Tav. Well, why is that significant? Tav, in Hebrew, that Tav is the sign of the cross. We get the letter T from it. That's why T looks like it looks like. T, the capital, is one kind of cross, and the lowercase is the other kind of cross. In Hebrew, that is what it means. Put a cross on their heads. You have a seal of God. You don't see it, but you have a seal of God on your life. The mark of God on your life. You've got a Tav on your life. You are marked and sealed by the cross. And that means you are free from judgment if you have that cross, that seal. You are protected. You are immune from judgment and condemnation and rejection. Not of man, but where it counts. The Tav, the mark of the Lamb, the mark of Messiah, the mark of God. The Tav is your protection, your guarantee. The cross is your guarantee. You are marked against any harm. Things can happen, but it's not going to end up harming because God's going to work it all for good. This is Jonathan Cahn. If you were blessed by the part of the message you just saw, you can get a copy of the full message and see it in its entirety, and you can see the full catalog of all my messages. Just go to hopeoftheworld.org/order, and you can get any message on DVD, CD, download them on MP4, MP3. Just go to hopeoftheworld.org/order.